Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and good evening to everyone.
Good evening, Prof.
So how's everyone doing? Okay. So for all of us in Malaysia, welcome to MCO 2.0.
No.
Ya Allah, what to do, huh? Okay, so hope everyone is okay and well. Just waiting for some others to come online here.
Okay, Prof, but boring
Boring.
because of the online and the MCO and everything.
Mutiara, are you in Malaysia or in Indonesia?
I'm in Malaysia. I didn't go back.
Oh, okay. You're still
1 year now. Yeah.
Wow.
I know, right?
It seems like it's never gonna end. Ya Allah.
Yeah.
It's
True.
funny, my daughter, she just started university right around when the first MCO started. So she has yet to, she's already in her third semester, she's yet to see her campus. She's never been on campus. So she might finish her bachelor's degree without ever having stepped foot on the campus.
Oh yeah, that's
so there's
bad.
a lot of students, in those kind of situations now. So anyway, we just keep trucking along, do the best we can, inshallah. So, all right. So we are in week 12. We are almost there. Our semester is almost over. Can't believe it. So let me just show my Puja Blast. Just want to go over tonight's content for the class. Whoops, that's not it. Okay, so just a few housekeeping things before we start. So our final exam, we agreed on those 3 dates in February. Okay, so just to remind everyone, for those of you who may have not been online last week when we announced it, let me just show my calendar. So it's the 8th. It'll start the evening of the 8th. Sorry, did I say the evening or the morning of the 8th? Do you remember? Anybody remember?
I was thinking the morning.
Yes, bro.
I said when?
Yeah, I guess good morning.
8 morning.
8th morning.
8 morning to 10th evening.
8 morning to
10th evening, I think.
Evening, so 5 o'clock. Is that right? 5 p.m. on the 10th. All right, so it'll start the morning of the 8th, and he will be doing on the 10th at 5 o'clock. Okay. So what else did we say last week? Anyone remember? Did we agree on in terms of your assignment 2? Did we set a date for that? Remember?
No date yet.
I think we had decided to postpone the decision, right? So our class ends on the 26th. Our last class will be 26th. So, and I think I said, I can accept assignments up until a week after that. So like on the 2nd of February. Because I need time I need some time to grade, the assignments and then the exams. It's going to be quite a bit of material to grade. So should we just make it on the 2nd of February, the due date? Does that work, everyone? Or would you like?
No problem.
Would you like to negotiate for a later date?
I want to negotiate.
Okay, so how late do you want it? Now we start the process of negotiation. How late would you like it?
I think according to what I think you posted a submission right inside Putra Blast, and it's written 28th of February.
Is it? See, I don't remember.
Yeah, for the article critics. Yeah.
I posted that, really? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Let me check. I got so much stuff going on. Oh, and the assignments, yeah. Assignments folder.
Second assignment, you mean the article critics, right? The group assignment.
The program critique.
Yeah, the program critics. Sorry, yeah, that one.
Yeah, but there's no date here. I don't think I posted it yet. Unless I posted it here.
Really?
I don't think I posted it yet.
Because I checked it, it was on 28th of February, if I'm not mistaken. Oh yeah, I have the screenshot if you want to see.
You have it. Well, it's okay. Never mind. We can renegotiate. So,
Okay.
is this, would you prefer the second, or? Because yeah, because you'll be handing in your. Okay, I can go to the third. How's that? 3rd February. Okay.
And
How much?
Okay, Prof.
Okay, for those of you who wanted it later, how much time do you need, or how much time do you think you need? Throw out a date. Because remember, we wanted to get this all done before Chinese New Year, right?
yeah, sure.
My screen is blurry. Really?
Yeah, there is a big square, black square thingy on the screen.
Really? Hold on a sec. Is it still blurry?
I didn't see it yet.
No screenshot, Prof.
No, I mean, is my screen blurry? Somebody said that, mentioned in chat that my screen is blurry.
Not your screen. I mean the screen sharing, the website.
Oh,
the
the screen sharing. Okay. Why would that be? I'm not sure.
Yep.
Is it still blurry?
Yeah. No problem. Okay.
Okay. Okay, so let's say is the 3rd okay, or would you really like it for it to be later? I'll go a little bit later if you need. Like the 5th, maybe. How's the 5th?
Can anyone?
Ole.
Can, Doctor?
Okay, Simon 2, do 5th.
Ole.
Oh, who said that? That was very good. Do, okay, 5th February, 5 o'clock. Okay, 5 o'clock, 5th February. All right.
Okay, Prof.
Okay, so I'll
All
post.
right, Prof.
Yeah, I'll post that on Puja Blast tonight after the class, just so we have it confirmed. All right, I'll put the times and the dates for both assignment and the exam. All right, so get that out of the way. Now, next week.
Prof, sorry, I'm sorry.
Uh-huh.
Prof, excuse me.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Roshakina. Okay, last week I still cannot click for the attendance, Prof, because the column remark is not open, so I cannot take.
Hey, I thought I did it for you.
Oh, you did for me?
Yeah, I did for you.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, we can check right now. Hold on. I'm pretty sure I did last week. Let me see. Let's check. Yeah, it's just easier for me to do it when students forget, but try not to forget. Just go in and click it now if you have it open. Oh, Shakina, where are you? Yeah, you're done. Yeah, I clicked it.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Okay. Yeah, so just go ahead and do it now so you don't forget. I know I moved it around so everyone's kind of like lost. What was I saying? Yeah. Okay, so next week we're gonna have, since there's nothing scheduled, as you notice, this is the last week for the reading presentation, right? Just to confirm, everybody has presented or has, except with the exception of today, of course, everyone has presented already, right? There's nobody in the class that's registered for the class that has not presented. Am I right? Is that right? I hope there's no stragglers that have not presented, because everybody who has registered for the class should have presented. If you're just sitting in the class, or that's fine, but you don't have to present. But if you're taking the class for credit, you should have already presented. So if you haven't, please let me know. All right, but it should be everyone should have gone. And so the next 2 weeks we don't have any reading presentations. So but next week we're going to have a guest speaker. So it's going to be our Deputy Dean, Associate Professor Dr. Siti Raba'a Hamza. She's going to come and talk to us about youth and volunteerism in Malaysia. She is a real expert, actually, in volunteerism in Malaysia, and she does a ton of work with youth, both in the university and outside the university, and a variety of different volunteer initiatives. She's been doing it for many years. So that's going to be our topic for next week, okay? And then I will, week 14, don't know yet. Still planning what we're going to do in the last week of the class. Okay, so that's for next week's class. Now, what I'd like to do now is I'd like to ask all of you just to go into Putra Blast. I have uploaded a very brief, it'll just take you like 5 minutes, a very brief survey on your experiences with online learning. I've been getting a lot of feedback from students recently, quite a bit of feedback recently on their experiences during the MCO and just in general their experiences with online learning. So I'm trying to just collect a little bit of formal data in relation to the topic. So if you could just go into Putra Blast, you'll see there's a link here at the bottom, a quick survey on your experiences with online learning. If you could just take 5 minutes, go in and just fill in that survey. It's anonymous. I won't know whose name or who's submitting it. So you can just go ahead and be as honest as you can, please. Because it's really important that I think as lecturers that we sort of get a sense of what students are going through with online learning. So please go ahead and do that now if you would. Thanks. And let me know if you have any trouble accessing it. when you're done, maybe you could just let me know by putting up your hand in the video screen there. You have that. Mahfouz got it. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna get going. If you haven't finished, it's okay. Go ahead and you can finish up while I'm speaking. So tonight's class, we're going to be talking about the topic is uh, youth roles in society. So tonight we're going to look at a very unique case study, actually. So this is based actually on a study that was done in Malaysia. Okay, so this is a book chapter that based on some research that we did here in Malaysia at UPM with a colleague from overseas. And the title of the article is Intergenerational Partnership and Youth Social Justice in a Malaysian Fishing Village. And just to give you a little bit of background of the study and the chapter, we did a study actually on a very unique youth association called Basuga, Belia Sukan Gaya. Okay. Any of you from Sabah? Do we have any Sabahans here in class? No? No one from Sabah? Okay, so this study took place on Gaya Island. For those of you who don't know, Gaya Island is right off the coast of Kota Kinabalu in Sabah. It's an island. It's a fishing village. It's an island with actually 11 fishing villages, comprised of the Bajau people, mostly Bajau people from originally from the Philippines, but they've migrated at different points in sort of history. They migrated to different parts of the sort of archipelago. And many of them ended up on Gaya Island, or at least there's a significant number on Gaya Island. And so this study that we did is based on the experience of the Youth Association on Gaya Island in Sabah. Okay, why would we study a youth association on a little island in Sabah? Well, this youth association is very unique, and they had a very unique approach to not only the work that they did as a youth association, but as a group that advocated for social justice. Okay, and so I'm going to let our presenters tonight share with you this case study about Basuga and what they were able to achieve on Gaya Island. Okay, and the purpose of sharing this is that really it's a study on something that we call youth adult partnership, right? Youth adult partnership is a approach to youth development where young people work closely with adults to on some sort of community issue program, and through this partnership, many different things happen, including individual youth development, but also social change and community development. Okay, so this study is really a study on youth adult partnership and how this youth association was able to achieve tremendous social change as through their work on Gaia Island. Okay, so it's a very unique kind of story. And so we wrote about it. We did research on it, and we wrote about it in several different publications. This is one of them, and this is a book chapter that was published in 2015 in a Sage volume on youth work. Okay, so who are our presenters tonight?
Doctor, our group.
Okay, Gao, do you want to take it away?
Yes, thank you, Doctor, for your introduction.
Sure. I think you can go ahead and share your screen.
Okay. Okay. Can you see the screen, guys?
Yep, you can see it.
Yes.
Okay. 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 Good evening, guys. So our topic today is contemporary youth roles. So just like Doctor mentioned, just now this is a case study, is focused on the Gaia island. So this is the journal of the term is intergenerational partnership and youth social justice in a Malaysian fish village. In our group, there are 3 members. So the first one is my name, Gao Gongkang, and the second is my partner, Jiang Yuyang. The third one is Ma Yue. Okay. Through this case analyze, so we look at the role of the contemporary young people in the society. We know what they doing in this civil associations. So next slide. Okay, this is our contents. So there are 5 parts in our presentation. The first part is the overview, and the second part is the Gaia Island in Sabah. This is a case study. Is from the case study we know how they develop the civil associations, and the third one is the youth associations in Malaysia, and the fourth part is discussion, and the final part is conclusion. So next slide. Next slide. This part is the overview part. Okay. Okay. So this is the we found from the Dr. Latif that published in his journal. So we will add one concept in our presentation. So in our daily life, we find a variety of organizations, some of which are official with a government nature, some are non-governmental and are organized voluntarily. What roles are these organizations play in our daily life? So here is a conception of the civil association. We can see the definition of civil association. Civil associations that are not associated with government, including schools and universities, advocacies, groups, professional associations like churches and cultural institutions. Business sometimes is covered by the term civil society and sometimes are not. Civil society organizations play multiple roles. So here are the roles of the civil associations. The first one is civil association contribute to the effectiveness and the stability of democracy government, both because of their internal effects on individual members and their external effects on wider polity. The second one is the Malaysia. So nowadays, Malaysia has made substantial commitments to its youth sector, which boasts over 8,000 registered youth organizations. So the third one is their roles as providers of non-formal education, recreation, leadership, and community development programs. So youth organizations have the potential to address development gaps arising from uneven wealth creation and distribution. So this is the definition and the role of the civil association in our daily life. So do you have the comments, Doctor?
Yeah, thank you, Gao. So have you heard of this term civil society? Anyone? Has anyone heard of the term?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, but
yeah.
I don't know specifically the meaning of it.
Yeah, there's another word or another term that's often used for these different civil society organizations, like NGOs, for example. Maybe you're familiar with it, Mahfouz?
It's NGO then affiliate.
There's but for that sort of sector, the what they call civil society, there's another term for it that's quite popularly often here them used. So typically you have the private sector, you have the public sector, and then you have anyone know? And it's that other sector that civil society falls under. Public, private, and
Government.
Partnership.
NGO.
Yeah, well, that's what the
NGOs?
NGOs fall under. They fall under this third sector. They call it the third sector. Okay, so you have the public sector, private sector, and they call it the third sector. So all these civil society organizations, like youth organizations, youth associations, community organizations, NGOs, local and international, etc. They all fall under what's called the third sector or civil society. Okay, and so here what we did was we first wanted to explain how youth organizations and youth associations are part of that civil society or that third sector, and they play a very important role. As you can see, at one time, I don't know if it's this high now, the number, but at least when this article was written, there were over 8,000 registered youth organizations. So Malaysia's got tons of, these are formal associations. So it doesn't even count the informal ones that you see like on weekends, these different groups, they just get together socially, whatever. Maybe they're a biking group or a car club or something. They're also a form of association. They just may not be formally registered with the Registrar of Youth, Roy, in the country. So we've got quite a large actual civil society sector, especially when it comes to youth organizations in Malaysia. Okay, so that's important to know. Okay, so of course we're speaking from the Malaysian perspective, but it would be interesting if our students from China have anything they want to add about China. That'd be also interesting for all of us to learn. So please feel free to share anything about your country as well.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we maybe can share after our presentation.
Sure, up to you.
Okay. So next slide. So this is the YAP approach that just like our doctor mentioned, the youth partnership, youth adult partnership. Here we add a concept, the YAP is we searched on the Google that the journal is also published by our Dr. Latif. So we will introduce this YAP. YAP is based on the premiers that adult supported youth voice on issues that affect young people will result in greater proceeds value in education. So to grow up health, young people required an alpha of learning experience that are motivating, relevant, provide them with opportunities to make decisions, and are carried out in context of supportive relationships with others. So such learning contexts, whether based on families, schools, and communities, are effective when there is engagement between the young person and his or her environment. So this is the definition of the YAP from our Dr. Latif journals. So, Doctor, do you have something to say?
Yeah, so I mean, I think maybe for the past 8 years or so, we've been doing a lot of research, both in Malaysia and other countries, on youth adult partnership as a way of engaging young people, helping young people to develop, working in the context of communities. So something like youth leadership, those that take a youth adult partnership approach believe that youth leadership is best achieved when it's done with adults as partners. In other words, it's not when young people are not completely on their own doing it, but they are learning from adults, working together. Something like mentoring is an example of a youth adult partnership approach where the relationship is reciprocal, meaning it goes both ways. So young people learn from adults learn from youth. Okay. And it allows young people to make decisions about their own, whatever programs they're involved in, they're making decisions, but with the support and guidance from adults. So it's not a situation where young people are on their own, or they are working against the interests of adults, but the two are actually working together. And so it's a community building strategy, really. And if you look at more traditional communities, it was part and parcel of traditional communities, because in pre-modern communities, young people played much more meaningful roles in society than they do nowadays. And we've discussed this earlier in the course, how in zaman dulu, as we say in Bahasa, young people from a very early age played very adult roles in society, right? So in the modern age, we've extended this idea we've extended childhood, right? And so youth adult partnership is a way of bringing sort of that old approach back, where young people, in their youth age, they are playing more adult roles alongside adults. So while they're doing it, while they're making decisions, they're also learning from adults on how to do it. And so it's that kind of idea. So this is really what we saw when we studied Gaia Island and the Youth Association there. This is really the approach that they used. And it may be because they were on a small island and the community was a very tight-knit community. So they've worked very closely together. It may be because of the culture. It was more of a traditional culture, so they had a lot of respect for adults, but the adults also really valued the inputs of the youth. Okay, so we'll let the group explain more about Gaia Island, but so this is why we sort of looked at it from this approach, this lens, youth adult partnership. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
if there's any questions, please stop us. Yeah, any questions? Or anything anybody wants to add?
Okay. No questions. Okay.
You can pretty much guarantee that there will be at least one final exam question on this topic, because this is a topic that's very close to my heart. So.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I think for now it's no question, right?
No, but it's okay. Just continue on. But people can stop at any time.
Okay.
You can stop at any time.
Okay.
To ask questions.
Okay. Okay, so this slide is the YAP takes many forms. So this is the objective, the youth adult partnership works along the lines of youth voice in decision making and caring relationship with adults who recognize the value in helping youth exercise voice. So in this slide, we summarize the 4 points of the YAP. So from the journal, the first one is the social work skills, social work. So it's like mentioned in the journal, making joint decisions about the school policies. The second one is management. So adults support of youth association activities and joint advocacy efforts on behalf of communities. The third one is administration, administering the community projects together, and youth and adults sitting on organizational governance committees. Yes. Okay.
Committees, yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, so this is a concept. Youth adult partnership is a concept. It's also a practice, but it can take on many forms, right? So depending on the type of organization. So for example, even in businesses, we see now something like reverse mentoring. I don't know if any of you have heard of reverse mentoring. Anyone know what reverse mentoring is? Maybe you, just from the term, you can guess.
Is it the teacher who teach the lecture?
Sorry, say again, Mutiara?
Is it the students who give a lecture to the lecturer? That's why it's reverse.
Sort of,
Or how?
yeah, sort of, but it's not lecturing, it's mentoring.
Yeah, mentoring. Sorry.
Yeah. So like, yeah, so for example, like in a lot of companies now, young people are teaching the older staff about how to use social media, for example, right? Or how to help the business have a better online presence, you know, stuff like that. Because young people tend to be more skilled at things like social media and stuff like that. So we see a lot of this nowadays, and this is an example. Um, in a lot of places when it comes to like community and youth organizations, you know, you have youth and adults making decisions together about policies, about projects, right? And partnership, there's different forms of partnership. You know, partnership doesn't necessarily mean that everybody, it's all the decision making is 50-50 necessarily, because in a lot of cases, young people are not, they don't have enough experience to really do it to that extent. But it's about the concept is if this is a program or if this is an activity or a project that affects these people, then they should have a meaningful role in how that activity is carried out. Okay, so that's sort of the social justice element of it, right? Behind it, actually. And of course, a lot of our research has shown that developmentally, it's a great way for young people to acquire skills, to acquire good relationships with community and with adults, to get them engaged in different activities. They acquire different skills, leadership skills, decision-making skills, communication skills. So there's a lot of benefit for both who get involved in this type of activity, these types of activities. Right? So of course, in a lot of youth programs, young people tend to be very tokenistic. They are used or seen as tokens. In other words, some government minister has a KPI, they have to run a youth program and they need a minimum of 300 youth to attend, right? So they just go out and they try and get young people to attend. And so the young people come and they give them a speech, they give them a lecture, they give them some goodies, and then they send them home, right? That is certainly quite the opposite of youth adult partnership. Youth adult partnership is very different philosophy on how you do programs that involve youth. Okay, the very first thing is that young people should be involved in the planning of those programs because those programs are for them. right? So it shouldn't be for them, it should be done with them. Okay, and you'll find this also in like extension education theory and that sort of thing. So participation by the target group or the client. Okay, so in this case, it's young people. So young people are involved in from the very beginning in the decision making that regarding how those projects are carried out. Okay, and and that's essentially what youth adult partnership is all about. Okay, Cal.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So next slide. Okay. This slide is the outcomes of the YAP. So what the results tell us. So there are four outcomes from the journal. The first one is contribute the school engagement, school attachment, and civic engagement outcomes strongly related to academic achievement. I think the second one is the youth participation in school decision making increases students' voice in schools and offers a way to re-engage students who may be disengaged. The third one is youth voice initiatives also help young people to develop important civic competence, including great tolerance. Yeah. Thank you, doctor. Including great tolerance for and relationship with others, respectively and effectively. Question authority and engaging in public speaking. The final one is the when young people are given opportunities to express voice and persuade adults are supportive and they are more likely to feel engaged, in addition to reporting a greater degree of community attachment and belonging. So this slide is tell us when youth to evolve into the programs or projects, what will happen and what the outcomes will be. So there are four outcomes from the journal.
So yeah, so these are some of the outcomes that we've found, that researchers have found. One of the things that we've found in here as well in Malaysia is that young people really want and like working with adults. Actually, it's often the problem is often the adults. They often don't value young people's inputs and views and opinions and all that. So, and they often don't feel that young people have what it takes to really be involved in serious kind of work, decision making and stuff like that. So this is often the barrier. It's often not from the youth, it's often from the side of the adults. And so we are, like in our next research project, we are proposing to do a training for adults on how to embrace this kind of thing. So inshallah, we'll see how that goes. Okay, any questions so far? How does it sound? Does it sound radical to you guys? Like, no way can we do this. This is too much. Youth power, blah, 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 all that.
Yes, it's youth power.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, but see, that's the thing is that in actuality, it's not, because youth power is really about defiance. You know, you get this a lot in sort of Western culture, this idea that youth have to challenge adults, youth have to challenge mainstream thinking, youth have to challenge, and they have to be defiant. Actually, youth adult partnership is actually quite the opposite. It's about trying to build community and getting youth and adults to work together, right? And by acknowledging that young people are actually budding adults and they're not children, by welcoming them into sort of the community as young, capable, but yet inexperienced decision makers, it's actually trying to avoid that kind of a rift between youth and adults. It's actually quite the opposite, even though it sounds like it's kind of, that kind of thing, youth power and all that. So yeah, it is about youth power, but it's about doing it in a healthy way, in a way that builds community rather than brings, tears communities apart, which is often the case with those sort of movements. Right, so okay, so let's get to
Okay.
Basuga, and you can hear about a Malaysian example of youth without punishment. Okay, next slide.
Okay. Next slide. Hello. Next slide. Okay.
Wow,
So
look at
this
that.
is yeah. So this is a case study. This is a research location of the Gaia Island in Sabah. So I went to some places in Malaysia in this 1.5 years. So, but I never been to the East Malaysia. So
Oh,
this
it's
is
so beautiful.
yes, so beautiful. So I think for the local people, they are more familiar with this Gaia Island, right? So this is the introduction of the Gaia Island. Is the home to several upscale beach resorts as well as the marine park resorts and tourism and the coastal activities such as diving, snorkeling, island hopping, and deep sea fishing and beach activities. So which is pristine beauty and premier location, Gaia Island is a popular destination among tourists. So
Okay, so that
this is
picture
the
there.
introduction.
Okay, so that picture there, that is not where we studied. we did not study that beautiful resort. Actually, what's really ironic about Gaia Island is that on one side of the island, there's like 2 or 3 of these 6-star resorts. Very Orang Kaya. Okay, well, it's the other side of the island that we studied. Okay, so I'll let Gao show you the other side. Go ahead, Gao. Continue.
Okay, so you went to the countryside, right, doctor?
Yeah.
Okay, so next slide.
Oh, you're not going to show it? Okay, no, I'll show you guys later.
Okay. Okay. So this is the greatest challenge in Gaia Island. So the first one is the great challenge for the Gaia residents have been their struggle to survive. So without basic infrastructure. And the second one is for them, there are no doctors or medical clinics on the island to get medical or dental treatment. Residents have to travel by the boat to the mainland. So the last one is the vast majority of the Gaia residents lack of formal education beyond a basic primary level. They work as laborers selling the eateries and outdoor markets in other unskilled jobs. So this is the challenges in the beautiful Gaia Island. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. So next slide. Okay. This part is the youth associations in Malaysia. Go ahead. Next slide. Okay. So here is our four parts to talk about the youth association in Malaysia. The first one is youth association in Malaysia is voluntary, no governmental organizations are headed, administered, and comprised of the young people between the age of 15 and 40, as stipulated in the countries of youth association, youth society, socials, and youth development art And the second one is the of the 20 and 10, there were approximately 3 million members of youth associations in Malaysia out of a total youth population of near 12 million. The third part is the youth association have always been defined broadly to include local and grassroots as well as international organizations. Unlike the other Western counterparts, the vast majority of Malaysian youth associations are not independent from government. The last one is that too much involvement by the government in the sector detracts from the ability of the associations to stand on their own and become self-sustaining.
Sustaining, yeah.
Okay, yes, sustaining.
Go ahead.
This is, go ahead. Okay, this is my last slide. So I will pass my partner.
Okay, so sorry, before we go on, I just want to, I'm gonna just share my screen just for a minute. I just want to show
Okay.
I want to just show everyone some of the setting of Gaia Island.
Okay.
With some other pictures. Okay, so to show you what the other side of Gaia Island looks like. Okay, because Gao just showed you the resorts. So I want to show you what the side of Gaia Island that we study looks like. So you can see on the screen there. Can you guys see on the screen?
Yes.
Yes, doctor.
Yeah. Okay. So it's interesting that Roshakina, that you said that illegal immigrant village at the back of the village. So this is the village that everyone assumes is filled with illegal immigrants. In fact, actually only about 20% of the more than 11,000 people that live here are actually illegal. 80% of them are actually Malaysians with Malaysian citizenship. Okay, so that's one of the things. Even people in Sabah have this image of the people living on Gaia Island are mostly illegals, but actually they're not. Yeah, there is a small percentage, but many of them are not. Okay, so this is what their houses look like. Now, hold on, sorry, I have to just fast forward this a bit. Okay, so one of the things that so this is what the island looks like. Okay, the side of the island where the villages are. So you can see all the villages are actually out in the water. They're not even on the island. Okay, they don't live on the island. They live actually on the coast. Okay, so you can see these are each villages with different numbers of residents. There's a total of 11 villages actually on the island. And on the right side in the map, you can see Gaia Island is literally right off the coast of Kota Kinabalu. If you are in KK and you're looking out into the South China Sea, the first landmass that you see right there is Gaia Island. So people have to take a boat back and forth to get to the mainland. And many of the islanders that work on Gaia, they work in KK. All right, so every day they'll take these little boat taxis to and from work on the mainland. So in the villages, they don't have, like was mentioned by Gao, they don't have any doctors, they don't have any, there's a small police station. And so these are, but this is the other side of the island, the 5-star beach resorts. Now, the big thing about Gaia Island is that at the time of the study that we did in around 2014, 2015, they did not have electricity or running water, these villages, okay? So they've been there for many, many, many years, and they have yet to be provided by the government electricity or running water. So they have to use power generators, petrol-powered generators for electricity, and they have to have their water literally shipped in every day by boat. And it's quite expensive actually for the villagers. So you see here on this in the slide, these are the boats that carry the water tanks. So every day they have to go across and they have to fill up their water tanks at the back of their houses. Okay. And so you can see on the houses there, some of them even have Astro, even though they don't have electricity, they have to use power generators, but they still have their Astro. Okay, which is really funny. So this is a highly marginalized group. Okay, this is what their houses look like, literally floating, not literally floating, but they look like they're floating on the water. Okay, so very, very sort of rudimentary, basic houses. And this is this is the back of their school. They're, and it's actually a beautiful school. I was there. It's sort of feels like you're floating on the water. And they even have these little pondok classes that are also like on the water classrooms. But it's a hard life for the kids there. As you can see, the big water tanks there supplying the water for the school. And again, that's water that has to be shipped in every day from the coast, from the mainland. Okay, so I just wanted to share that a little bit more background and context of the case, and I'll let our group take over. Okay, Gao, you guys can continue with your presentation.
Okay, doctor.
Exploding.
Assalamualaikum, doctor. And next I will. Oh, can you see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So for my part, however, there are also successful examples of youth organizational in Malaysia. So in Malaysia, to address the link of case study, we set out to study one such association, the Bosuka, yeah, despite facing significant economic, political, and social inequalities, Basuka has successfully brought together 3 generations of island residents for recreation, sports, instruction, and social action. Moreover, the association has successfully organized diverse stakeholders to bring electricity and freshwater infrastructure to the island. I will introduce the Basuka. So for this organization, it was established in 2007 and as a sport-based association. And the organization is governed by a 15-member executive committee, and also it has 440 youth, and 17 of members are male. So for this organization, now it's mentioned, and the mention is it enhances the overall health and well-being of its members, and by extension, the entire Gaia Island community. And for the organizational objective is to educate the members in order to prepare them to contribute back to their community and the nation. And also, it has this organization activities are provided in the 2 core program. One program is youth development. So for this youth activity plan consists of formal educational activities involve the educational and public speaking and so on. So it's aimed to enhance the mental, physical, and spiritual abilities of members. And another program is sport. And for sport, the sport program area consists of hosting regular tournaments in football and other sports. So for sports, assessed from being effective as a recreating tool, also have to develop physical or health competence and motivation among Basuka members.
Okay, so just to
So
just to give everyone a little bit of an overview of this slide. So they started in 2007, this group of very determined young people, most of them were in their 20s at the time. They decided they want to start a sports association, youth and sports association, because they saw that on the island, a lot of the young people were getting involved in drugs. They didn't have any activities to do, and they really wanted to help develop the community. Okay, and so they started this association. And initially, it was just mostly just sports. So they would organize tournaments. They'd have regular programs related to sports, especially bola and volleyball. In fact, they're quite famous for their volleyball teams. Their volleyball teams are very good. Okay. But then they realized that there's a lot more they could do for the island, and so they started to offer different types of educational programs. And to do that, they would often outsource these classes and programs to other groups. So they would invite other groups to come and, for example, teach classes in different languages, teach English classes, how to use computers, stuff like that. So they became, even though they started as a youth and sports association, they became really a community development association. As you can see there, they started offering a variety of different educational activities and classes. Okay, so they began to really grow, and they also began to become very popular on the island because, imagine you're on this island and you're very isolated, right? You're very isolated from the rest of Sabah. You're very isolated in terms of people. People don't think that highly of the people on Gaia Island. They have a lot of sort of assumptions about them. You're a poor community, so they have it's a very close-knit kind of community. And so they became very popular because they started to do a lot of things for the island, even a lot of things that the adult association on the islands, they weren't even doing. Okay, so they began to become very well regarded by everybody on the island. Okay, and that's sort of how they got started. Okay, Maya, you can continue.
Okay. So to ensure the financial constraints do not hinder join the associations, the financial support of Bazooka Association it become a three-part, and the internal registration fee is 1 ringgit, and monthly membership fee are collected. And also the state government provide an annual operating cost specific of 5,000 ringgit. Also sponsorship from external entities such as local technology colleges. It also help reduce program cost. And also this government for its range of age, it is 15 to 14. The organization devoted it for three parts, and most of young people age is 15 to 18. This group is mainly composed of middle-aged program participants, and another age of people is 18 to 30. This group people is to imagine adult of Bazooka are the most activity members of the organization, and the group also act as a bridge between young members and adult instant and outside Gaia. And a few small group of 13 to 14 years old, they tend to assume more adult roles as consultants and supporters for organizations and intermediaries. Yeah.
Okay, so this is just a little bit of overview about the organization itself and how they sort of do things and their composition as an organization. So at that time, 15 to 40 was the official age of youth associations. Now it's what? What's the age in Malaysia now? Official age is? You guys should all know this by now.
30.
Yeah, so it's 15 to 30 now, right? Okay. Can proceed, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. For this and for this, the evaluation of bazooka as an range of social changes, the major of Malaysia youth association focused on their primary role as a provider of youth program. Like similar associations found elsewhere, they often play or supportory roles in social change effective. In the case of Gaia Island, however, bazooka was the main driver in bringing about intentional improvements to Gaia Island's residents, specifically water and electricity. And our analysis indicated that the social justice oriented work initiated in 2006 occurred in four phases. So next four slide, I will introduce four details of four phases.
So, sorry, Mayo, can you go back to that last slide?
Okay.
Yeah. So now Basuga begins to evolve. They start to realize that they have a bigger role to play on the island rather than just providing activities for youth. Okay. They begin, as I mentioned, they begin to become an education provider. But at this point, now the community starts to ask them to help in different ways. So, for example, like in the school, there were some problems that the principal of the school was having with the youth there. There were students that were playing truant, they're not going to school, having problems with the parents, etc. So now even the principal of the school was going to Basuga and asking them to help out with their problematic students. Okay, so they actually were actually asking the youth association to become like youth workers, right? So they became like youth workers, helping the younger youth in the community address different problems and so forth. So they really began to become a resource for their community on the island. And this is the beginning of how they really began to become an agent of change, an agent of social change. Okay. Now we get to the big event. Okay. Please proceed. Any questions so far? No? Okay. Maya, go ahead.
Okay. So for the first phases, evaluation of bazooka, and it's a startup provide educational and sports program. And bazooka leader sent out to analyze sports as main
vehicle.
vehicle,
Yeah.
vehicle
Okay.
to engage youth in island-based activities in an attempt to enhance their physical well-being, motivation, teamwork, and leadership competencies. For this is for sports activities. They choose some activities like football or something because as pro just show the island, this island is so poor. So they choose some low cost of activities to support their organization, activity. So, and another is to increase association membership. The tournament registration fees were also contained as a membership fee, making it easy for the young people to join the association. This approach allowed the bazooka's membership to grow with each program held. And the last one is provide educational programs is by utilizing the talent and ability of those within the association. Basuka began to expand its programming by offer classes and training in area include cooking and English. So they also running many activities a year, such as the environmentally aware community project with nearby university and technology educational. So in just a few years, Basuka activity membership and reputation grow with each program.
Okay. So you can see how valuable these kinds of organizations can be to communities. Okay. So, all right, next, because I want to get to the real important
Okay.
change that they made.
Okay.
Let's
So
see.
for the second phase evaluation of Basuka as of Basuka, this is a 14 key community partnership. So Basuka began to expand the scope of work to target all aspects of the community, such as school officer, partners, parents, and village chiefs. The young leaders of Basuka try to set themselves as an example, emphasizes the importance of educational, encourage children to study hard and explain to them the various opportunities available after completing their studies. Through their effect, Basuka began to win the respect of school leaders and parents, and was able to promote stronger between two parts. With the increased influence of Basuka, it faced the challenge of serving a large population. This means that more community leaders can establish content with Basuka. So in Malaysia rural culture, the role of the village chief is particularly important. It's very important to obtain his permission to engage in any activities in their respect village. The village name trusts the village chief to manage the village affairs. The support of village chief can basically ensure the follow-up support of the villager. And in the most cases, Basuka effect to obtain the support of the village chief was successful. Basuka challenge also include attracting and keeping adult community members involved and finding many role for them. Most adults in Basuka support in the form of energy and manpower. As a poor fisherman, they no money, they have no formal educational, and many adult resort provide help in the relatively simple way, which is commensurate with their results and abilities.
Okay, so here we really begin to see the youth adult partnership aspect of their work. Okay, so I don't know if you're able to follow all that, but they began to, as I mentioned, they began to be called on by the different community groups, like for example, schools, even the Ketua Kampongs began to ask them to help out in different ways, right? So they began to really forge working relationships with many of the adults in the communities. Okay, so this is where the youth adult partnership part really took off. As I mentioned, they work with the principals of the school, they work with parents, they work with the village heads. And then when they would do their own programs, the adults would come and volunteer in the youth programs, actually. Okay, so they would even work with adult volunteers. And so you can really see how strong the youth adult link here, the youth adult partnership link was in their work. Okay, and this was a big part of their success because after this, they began to forge working partnerships with companies and organizations in on the mainland in KK. Kota Kinabalu. Okay, including like companies, universities. Okay, they would begin to get support from them, right? Because people were recognizing the work that they were doing. All right, so everything they were doing now was really a partnership between them, their youth association, the youth, and the different adults and the adult leaders and the adult organizations. All right, so this is where the youth adult partnership really began to take off. Okay. All right, Mayu, next.
Okay. And the third phase is evaluation of bazooka is organizing to bring results and change to the community. And first of all, despite years of neglect, the residents of Gaia Island has been brandly the supporters of the ruling of ruling BN government. For 2008, they had unsuccessful try to capitalize on this support by lobbying their representative at both the federal and state level, focusing on their most pressing needs of running water and electricity. Slowly, an infrastructure was founded, most notably as school and policy station. Not least progress on water and electricity was slightly.
Wasn't
And
slightly,
the
there was
second
none.
one,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
So, and the second one, the leaders of bazooka, inspired by their popularity and achievements, made the government listen to the different opinions. Opinions of opinions of community representatives, academic, and all walks of life, and final agreed to provide electricity and running water to this island.
Okay, so this is really the big event for them. So as the group and myself, as we have explained up to now, they had made great strides using a youth adult partnership approach. They made great strides in terms of their own achievements, what they were able to achieve on the island, not only for the youth but also for the island itself, for the community there. Now they were setting their sights on the big prize. Okay, the big prize here was water and electricity. Okay, for all those years, and they've been there for a long time, they never had water and electricity, and they said it's enough. It's enough. But we should have this now. We deserve this. It's our right to have it. For years, the adult leaders on the island had been lobbying the government for these basic services, but they were denied over and over again. They were denied. Can anybody think of why the government would be hesitant to provide them with these basic services? Can anybody guess?
They are illegal.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah. They are perceived to be illegals. Okay, as I mentioned, 80% are not illegals, but the perception is that they're illegals. So if you're the politician and you are seen as providing these services and spending money, the government's money on these illegal residents, how's it going to look for you politically, right? It's not politically popular to do. So that was basically the reason why they had refused. However, what happened in 2008? Anybody remember? I know you guys are young, but you're not that young. What happened in 2008 politically in Malaysia? Anybody remember? Any Malaysians in the class remember? 2008 was the first what?
Economic depression.
No, well, it was, but politically, in Malaysia, politically, 2008 election was known as something. It was the first political what? Political tsunami.
Yes.
You guys don't
Political
remember?
movement.
Well, it was a political
Political
tsunami. It was in 2008, the opposition won 5 states, right? So it was a very successful election for the opposition. So after that, all of the Barisan national representatives were really scared. Okay. Now, the Basuga, the youth association, was very smart. They knew this, and they said, you know what? Now's the time to really go to the politicians and ask them for our water and electricity, and that's what they did. So here, what they did was they called a program. They held a program on the island, and they invited a lot of very powerful people, the head of the electric company, the head of the universities, you know, a lot of big shots in KK, and they invited their political representative, their Adun and the Orang Parliament and all that. At the event, the youth leader, he was one of the ones that we interviewed for this project. He got up and asked in front of everybody. He asked their political representative why to this date they have not been given these basic services. Why are they still without water and electricity after all these years? So they basically put him on the spot in front of everybody, right? And what could he say? You know, so he gave in and he said, you know what, it's about time, you're right. So I think we agreed to provide the island with these basic necessities. Okay, so it was this very strategic move by Basuga. Of course, the work that they had been doing before that had built up to this, right? And now they had so much support from everybody, they felt it was the right time, and they chose the right time. You know, timing was everything. They knew politically it was a good time to do it, and the government, they gave in and they agreed to do it. And so now, fast forward 5 years, they have running water and they have electricity on Guy Island because of the efforts of Basuga. Okay. So it's really an amazing story. I mean, to me, it's an amazing story of what what young people can achieve, and a youth association can achieve in even in Malaysia. I mean, it's not something that we often hear about, but I actually think there's a lot of these kinds of things that happen. Maybe not to this degree, but these kind of things actually happen a lot. We just don't hear about them that much, right? So okay, so. But I think I just heard the azan. So maybe we'll just take a break now. We'll stop there. All right. Maya will give you a rest. You can rest your lungs for a little bit. Okay. So let's take a break and we'll come back in about 20 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Prof.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome back. Everyone there? Can we start again?
Hi, Prof.
Hi. So Zila asked the question, did anyone from Basuga join politics? A very good question. I don't know offhand, to be honest. Although I do know that just shortly after we finished our study, it was taken over by a young woman, actually. She was only 22 or 23 when she took over the association. So she's really really excellent, great, very good leader. So anyway, so let's, can we continue? Mayu, would you like to continue the presentation? I think we're almost finished, right?
Yeah. And this is the last phase of evaluation of Basuka. It is education the community. After the state government agreed to an agreement to provide tap water and electricity to Gaia City. The head of Basuga's association know little about the process and the knowledge needed to transition to a more complex infrastructure. Leaders quickly realized that community education was needed to help villagers understand the meaning of electricity. Through helping the residents understand what was required to properly properly manage their new results. Moreover, many island youth who did not know Basuga before the project become aware of organizational through Zuradaha's work. The establish of stronger community relationship by Basuga has been important during the transition period to new electric and water supplies. Last, with a long period of power construction in the face of residents' complaints, Basuga need to respond through a lot of energy, educational factors on the scale of the project.
Okay, so this is the final stage of their evolution as a full agent of social change. So actually, after they worked to get the government to approve the electric and water projects, then somebody had to take the lead on educating the community about these things, because these people never had electricity or water before. So for example, they didn't know like what a meter, electric meter was. They didn't know how to pay an electric bill. They didn't know that, what is an electric rate, what, how much they have to pay every month, all these things. They never had this before, right? So Basuga took the lead actually in educating the community about their new these new amenities that they had. Okay, so they literally would form teams, and they would go door to door, and they would actually talk to the residents, answer their questions. And it was funny because they mentioned that some of the residents like were even suspicious, like, what is this thing hanging in my house? Like, are you like trying to get money from me? Or, they didn't, these are simple sort of couple people. They didn't really fully understand it. So they had to be educated. So Basuga then became an education provider, a community education provider. Okay. And so this was really their final major role in helping the island to change. Okay, so as you can see, the role that this organization played in the community was really dynamic, very dynamic, and I think it's a very unique case. I just want to show just a couple more slides here. Sorry. Okay. How'd that happen? Sorry. So that's Zoraida. She became the president after her brother, Sajja. He was the president when we were there, but she took over shortly after. So she was one of our respondents in our study. And this is Sajja, the president. He's the one that we interviewed. He was the president when we were there. So as you can see, when they had installed the electricity there, they had these little meters, as we all have meters, right? So, and they had to really teach their fellow residents about all these things. So community education was the last and final role that they played in their work as agents of social change. Okay, so now what I would like to do, are there any questions, by the way? Any questions? Comments? Observations? Yes, Mutiara, are you trying to say something? I think your screen is muted.
No, Prof.
Oh, because your little box lit up, so I assume. Okay, now I would like, if there's no questions, I would like to, I'd like you to sort of put on your critical thinking caps for a minute. So this is a very nice example of what we call youth adult partnership, but I want to be a little bit critical here. I want you to, if you would, think about how realistic is this kind of thing, generally speaking. I mean, this is one example. Maybe it's a unique example, sort of out of the ordinary. But in sort of, think about general Malaysian society, or if you're from China, maybe general Chinese, Chinese society. how realistic is this youth adult partnership thing? What do you see as some of the barriers to this being a sort of mainstream practice in work with youth? Think about it for a minute. You can write it. You can write in the chat box if you'd like, or you can just share your response. I'll give you a couple minutes to think about it.
Prof, come again, the question?
Yeah, what do you see as some of the barriers to this, the challenges of it? You know, what might be some of the difficulties in implementing it on a sort of more mainstream basis? You know, it can be, I mean, anything, I mean, any kind of barriers that you see. You know, how realistic is it? Oh, I didn't realize that. Scarlett just said that there's another part left to present.
Yes, sorry, Pro.
Sorry, I jumped the gun. Okay, so anyway, Scarlett, you can go ahead and finish. Hold your questions, but just start thinking about them, yeah? Start thinking about what questions are. The answer to my question, actually, not the question. Think about my question as we're listening to Scarlett finish up the presentation.
Thank you, Pro.
Sorry.
All right, can you share screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Okay. And okay, I'm going to proceed the presentation. Next is about the discussion of our case study. Next slide. Next slide, please. And this is a critical challenge for Basuga. Although Basuga got some achievement for their evolution, there are also some challenges they need to face. First of all, I would like to introduce what is GITC. GITC means Gaia Island Training Center. And GITC is for training community members in computer literacy and homestay to be run by association. And to expand their work and make the GITC a reality, the leader identified 4 core challenges. And the first one is to spread awareness about the importance of association. Next slide, please. The first one is about spread awareness of the importance of the association. The leaders believe that in addition to sports, many young people still cannot appreciate the role of Basuga in community. Although some achievements have been made, and the leaders still insisted that the youth of Island need to have more awareness of the importance of association. And this is also a preparation for recruiting and training new leaders, as several members of executive commitment are close to 13 years or 30 years old. So it's necessary to develop a leadership skill of young members, especially those between 15 to 20 years old. And second one is developing new leaders. From the article, it showed there are always many challenges in developing new leaders. It is often emphasized that youth participation is a major component of successful community organizations. However, the challenge of attracting young people to this role has received a little attention. And according to other research, the research also showed that not only in Malaysia, many youth service organizations are also concerned about this problem. And third one is funding problems. Funding is still a challenge for Basuga. In fact, working in low-income communities is difficult. Actually, mostly funding are provided by the National Youth and Sports Ministry annual grant of 5,000 ringgit, and the sponsorship provided by the external groups. According to leaders, finding a long-term sponsor is a major challenge because many people do not want to support Gaia plans due to concern about negative publicity. And lastly, a last challenge is the executive committee members. They bear a lot of pressure. Some members of executive commitment are full-time employees, and some are parents, and maybe they have their own families. So sometimes they cannot take care of their roles. So resulting some losses for the organization. Although they love community, and are passionate about the Basuga. The responsibility seems endless. In addition, their success has raised the expectation of others, and the scope has become wider and wider. So therefore, letting more Basuga members, especially young Basuga members, participate in the process of the association have become a top priority. Okay.
So this is really interesting because, you know, the age of 15 to 40 for youth, when you look at youth organizations, you know, like youth associations like Basuga, many of the leaders were in their sort of late 20s, you know, maybe early 30s. And that's kind of the norm at that time in a lot of the youth associations. But there was a big gap between those youth and the younger youth, like the 15 to 18-year-olds. And so then when they changed the age to 15 to 30, a lot of the youth associations panicked because they thought, oh my God, who's going to lead? Because you know those young people are not ready to lead. They can't lead organizations, right? They're just not mature enough. They don't have the experience, not enough knowledge, and so forth. Basuga, as you can see here from their challenges, they did have the challenge of getting the younger people to be involved in leadership, and that's again because of this big gap between the older leaders and the younger people in the organization. So they were really trying to think of ways to get the younger people involved in leading the organization. When we were there, at least, that was a big problem. Okay, and it's a very real issue for a lot of youth associations. The catch-22 is that because they're older youth, they're also spouses, they're also parents, they also have their jobs. So they have a lot of commitments, which means they have less time for the association, right? So even though they are more mature and they are, of course, better positioned to be leaders, they have a lot of responsibilities, which sort of course, makes it difficult for them. So this was what they were kind of trying to deal with. And then, of course, funding is always an issue, right? So Ministry of Youth and Sports Malaysia always gives, every year they give a stipend to all the youth associations, but that's not enough really to cover all the things that they want to do. So they have to always look for sponsorship. They have to do fundraising, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a lot of work as well. Okay, and then of course, just spreading awareness is a constant effort, you know, to keep the positive publicity going, right, and bringing in new members and bringing in sponsorship and all that. So these are some of the challenges that Basuga was facing, and I think this is from our knowledge of youth associations in Malaysia. These are all pretty common things that a lot of youth associations struggle with in Malaysia. Okay.
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 Next.
Go ahead, Scarlett.
Yes, it's about the youth development programs. As we know, youth both products and the agents of the setting in which they engaged, and these reciprocal processes provide a basis for developing both their own and that of others. And as the basis of social action, youth development plan, especially in traditional society, can lead to concrete social changes and social justice. But often we underestimate the role of youth development programs. Okay, next slide.
So this is something that we observed, which is really, really powerful. When you spoke to the Basuga youth, they were so confident. They were so sure of themselves, not like other youth, right? And I think that's partly because of what they were able to accomplish and the fact that they were really accepted as adults. They were accepted as leaders. Like when we did focus groups with them, there were focus groups where they were mixed in with the adults in the community and the same focus group. And you could just see how much respect the adults had for the youth because of what the youth were able to accomplish, right? So imagine, you know, if you have young people involved in these types of efforts, these types of organizations and these types of programs, projects and so forth. I mean, the way that it brings young people into the community, the way it gives them a meaningful role, really meaningful role in the community. It's really powerful. So who can tell me that first quote that you see on the screen there? Youth are both products and agents of the settings in which they engage. Who can tell me what that means or what you think it means?
Youth are the products of the environment, which explain the setting in which they engage.
Can you just speak a little louder, Mutiara? It's hard to hear you.
Okay. Hello.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. So youth is the products the products of the environment that they live in.
Okay, that's part of it. What's
And
the
the
other part?
agents, and then the agents of the settings as well. Maybe the agents, they're the agents of the environment.
Okay, but what does it mean? You're using the same words to explain it.
Yeah, I know it's hard to explain.
That's why I asked the question.
Okay.
Maybe from youth, for youth, Prof, meaning that youth is doing the development for the youth themselves to experience it, to develop themselves. That means it's coming from them, the initiative is coming from them, and it is for their own benefit too.
Great.
From youth to some sort of like that, maybe.
From youth to youth. Yeah, very good. Yeah, that's great. Fatin, that's excellent. Yeah. I mean, that's what it means to be an agent, right? I mean, an agent is someone that is able to direct their own way, make their own decisions, right? But at the same time, they're also a product of that environment, right? And this is sort of the unique reality of being a youth is that, but I think that's the whole point of youth development settings that are more reciprocal, like a youth adult partnership kind of approach, where young people are expected and given the opportunity to really be agents. But in a lot of settings, they're not. In a lot of programs, they're not. They don't have that strong, there's not that strong agentic element to the program. They're just expected to be products and recipients, but not really agents. Okay, but it's those opportunities to do all that work, which is where the real hardcore development takes place. I've always said this, that I mean, young people are meant to be actors and agents, and they're meant to make mistakes, right? In fact, youth associations, these types of programs are where they are supposed to make mistakes and learn from their mistakes. That's the whole point of these types of organizations, right? Is that they're learning from their experiences, and so because of that, they are both products and agents of those settings. All right. So that's really something to keep in mind when we talk about, and I think week 14, we will probably just have a discussion to wrap up the class for the semester, but that's just, I just hope that's something that you take away from this class is to understand that young people are they're not just products of the settings that they are involved in society, but they're also very much involved in shaping those settings. Okay, and they have a very strong agentic role as agents. Okay, anyone else want to say anything about that? Mahfouz, did you want to say something? I thought I saw your screen light up.
Your question about youth and both products and agents, but then my answer is quite similar with Fatin.
Okay.
Yes, I want to say that it's a cycle. Yes, one.
Yeah. So go ahead, explain. What do you mean by a cycle?
Means that what the song by scoping, what you give, you get back. Whatever that you make programs is actually beneficial to them. That and the development of them only can be occurred when they produce whatever they.
Yeah, I mean that's a great way of it's a great way of thinking about it. A great way of expressing it. I'm glad you said that. It's kind of the idea that you give when you get. Sorry, you get when you give. You get when you give. Absolutely. When you act, of course you receive, and I think that's the whole idea. But unfortunately, many adults have this idea that young people are just supposed to receive, right? They're just supposed to be passive recipients, and that's how they develop, right? And you can even see this in the language that a lot of adults use. They'll say, "We need to develop the youth." Even that language is incorrect because youth are not recipients of development. They are actors in their own development. Anytime you make a decision about something, like you said, Mahfouz, there's going to be it's like every action has a reaction kind of thing, right? So when you make a decision about something, right, there's going to be some sort of response, in the environment, and that's going to shape you. That's going to contribute to how, to mold you and so forth. So it is definitely a sort of reciprocal, or like you said, a cyclical kind of process. And so I think that's really important that people understand that about youth development, is that it's not just young people receiving, but for them to really develop, they have to be participating, right? Again, we're not talking about small children, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, learning nursery rhymes and learning how to spell and all that. That's a totally different developmental stage. Youth is really the beginning of adulthood, and we have to remember that always. All right. So yes, that's just a really important point, I think, about this whole course, this whole idea of youth in society. All right. Okay. Sorry, Scarlett, is there anything else? Do you have more for us?
Yeah. Yes, Prof. Next, please. Next slide, please. And from the Basuga experience, the article identified 3 processes through which the youth brought social changes to Gaia. In addition, Basuga is the only youth association of the island which used a YAP approach to bring the positive social change to the Gaia Island community. Firstly, through the provision of community programs, the association leaders worked closely with the adult residents in the village, and they provide youth development and community education programs to youth and adult residents. For example, like cultural events and community education programs. And this function was critical for building community relationship, social capital, and enhancing skill of the population. And secondly, the process is also use of the youth-adult partnership as an organizing tool to bring together a device group of stakeholders to persuade the government for water and electricity. And in this way, Basuga was able to get support from local university leaders, state electric company officials, community leaders, and state representatives. The cooperation of youth and adults succeed in convincing the political leaders that Gaia Island was diversing of basic water and electricity infrastructures. And this successful and regular implementation of Basuga programs get support from adult residents as well as the village heads, leading to stronger working relationship. And this has also strengthened the sense of community cohesion and ownership for youth programming and for next generation of young people. And lastly, the role of Basuga is the community educators. After approval was given to install electricity and water, Basuga youth worked with the local adult to devise a strategy for educating the community about the new service. It helped the residents to finish installation, payment, and service of the electric and the water utilities. And the effort to educate the community could only be successful through cooperation between the youth and adults. And the establishment of strong community partnership opens up greater opportunity for leveraging key resources from outside the community that not only strengthen that youth development efforts, but also it brings valuable resource to the community as well. Next slide, please.
Okay, so those 3 key roles that Basuga played. So a lot of youth associations, they stop at the first phase. They do activities, they do programs. Basuga was unique in the sense that they went into phase 2 and 3. They became an intermediary, what's called an intermediary organization. In other words, they mediate between like people on the ground doing service provision, and then maybe like policymakers, funders, those sort of people at the top. So they become a sort of mediator between these two. Okay, and you could see that role that they played as they developed. And then lastly, of course, as we mentioned, community educators. So, you know, a lot of youth associations, they don't get to those three levels. It's actually quite rare to find a youth association doing all three of those things. Most of them will literally more or less just provide programs, and that's not a bad thing. That's just, you know, in terms of the maturation and the evolution of the organization, it just doesn't get beyond that. Okay, so that's one of we found this was one of the really unique things about what Basuga was able to accomplish. Okay. Okie doke. Next, please. Sorry, ask it.
Okay. Yes, as we can see, the role of association has expanded from the program provider to community organizer, intermediary organization, and to the community educator. All these roles are critical to its success in bringing social change to Gaia Island.
Okay.
Next, please. Okay, this is about conceptualizing YAP in traditional societies through multi-generation partnership. And for Basuga, the emerging adult mean the group between the age of 18 to 30. And they play a crucial role in promoting the intergenerational connection between adults and young people in community. Because they are close to middle school youth, so they are engaged in sports and have similar interests. So it's easier for them to establish contact with young people. This also helps motivate young members to participate more in association and play a meaningful role. And they have more in common with leaders of similar age. And at the same time, because of emerging adults are older and maybe they have begun to accept higher education, employment, and family roles, so they can also keep in touch with adults and gain their respect. This can help to establish effective working relationship between these three groups, which is a key factor in providing important service and benefits to the community. And in this case, I would like to highlight the partnership between youth and adults is not a dichotomy, but partnership involving three generations. Emerging adults are at the center. They provide programming for young people and organize and get support from adult residents and community leaders. And you know, in Malaysia, it's not common for young people to play a formal leadership role in youth association, because when they are in secondary school year, the youth will just focus more on their academic grades. This developmental and professional expectation limit youth leadership participation. Yes, for this, I would like to see the same situation in China. So, and you know, this is a big contrast to Western culture, where the young people often already have leadership opportunity when they are in high school and often earlier. Is that right? Great. Yeah, Prof. Okay.
So in Malaysia, oh, sorry, Scarlett, sorry, go ahead. I thought
it's okay, Prof.
No, in Malaysia, when the age was 15 or 40, we used to refer to them as early youth, middle youth, and late youth. Okay, so like 15 to 20 was, or 15 to 18, 15 to 20 was early youth, and then 20 to 30 was middle youth, and then 30 to 40 was late youth. Okay, but nobody really had ever sort of conceptualized or thought about how these three developmental groups sort of fit together under the sort of youth umbrella, right? So from our study, we kind of attempted to do that a little bit by conceptualizing how these three different generations really work together within under that umbrella of youth. And so Basuga kind of gave us a good a little bit of an example of that, of how they work. And we found that was very interesting is that the older youth, the 30-year-olds, 30 and above, they had sort of a difficult time relating to the teenagers, you know, the 15, 18-year-old, the secondary school students. They, you know, there's just too much of an age gap there where they didn't really mesh very well. And this is what they told us in our interviews. But the 18 to 30-year-olds, that sort of middle group, which in the literature you'll often hear about them referred to as emerging adults, they played a really important bridging role. Like because they could relate to the younger youth because they're younger than the 30-year-olds, and they can also, of course, work very well with the 30 and above group. So it's sort of like a sandwich generation, they're sort of like in the middle. But they played a very important role in connecting the older and the younger youth, which is what we found. And so a lot of the leaders of Basuga were actually in that middle group. They weren't the older, the 30 and above. They were actually in the 18 to 30-year-old group. So they were sort of like mid to late 20s, that kind of thing. So it's just very interesting to see how the dynamic of the organization and it worked really well. And so we began to think about maybe this is how like Scarlett mentioned, in Asian cultures where, youth are given these leadership roles at a bit of an older age than in Western culture. Maybe this is, the way it works best, is that you sort of have a multi-generational approach, and it's more collectivist. It's more in line with Asian culture, I think. And so it makes a lot of sense. And so we just sort of put it out there as a possible way of explaining this kind of youth adult partnership within the cultural context that we saw. So just putting it out there. It's just interesting to see. Okay, Scarlett, next.
Okay, next slide, please. Next, please.
Okay, finally, conclusion.
Yeah, finally. The lesson of Basuga's work highlight the potential of youth association to bring greater social justice to traditional communities, and that youth-adult partnership handed down from the generation to generation can be a key role in mobilizing change strategies. And given the social, ecological, and political challenges facing the world today, the next generation cannot wait until they become mature adults before starting to build a more cooperative and sustainable world. And I would like to say, for the association like Basuga, it's not just about teaching leadership knowledge to young leaders, because they are playing a role as a leader. So they need to learning by doing, so that they can making the community more responsible and effective. Yeah, next, please. And last but not least, here are some suggestions for implementation of YAP in the future. Youth-adult partnership is a concept and a practice. Young people can cooperate with the adult for governance, training, advocacy, wherever they make decisions and work with adults. And from others' experience shows that organizations must decide for themselves how, when, and where to involve young people in the work of organization or plan. The role of adults will play in this process must also be concerned. But if the adults are unwilling to accept the idea of YAP, it is unlikely to succeed. Associations should also seek help of the capacity builders such as university to help them learn from mistakes and the successes of others, and provide a training and technical assistance on how transition to a more youth and partnership friendly setting. Okay, that's all for our presentation. Thanks for attention.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Presentation team for this week. Thank you very much. Very nice job. So that's the presentation on Gaia Island, Basuga, and Youth Adult Partnership. So any questions before? So did you have a chance to think about my question before about your critique of Youth Adult Partnership? Anyone want to share? You can write it up in the chat box, or you can say it out loud, up to you. What do you see as potential problems with this approach? Anyone? Challenges, problems, barriers,
Maybe, Prof, maybe it's because basically the trust itself. Because in order to engage, in order to involve youth in one organization or in a group, We tend to believe that this maybe because of ego, maybe because we have this kind of culture that we are more experienced. The older person has more experience than the youth. So in order to involve them in making decision, probably it's difficult for them to, it's struggle for them to make decision. The less they can do is just give suggestion. I can, for example, in small organization, in our family, for example, it's difficult for us to listen to our children or to for their decision. Okay, for example, their career path, their spouses, choice of spouses, or their education, which one they want to major in. So they already have decision, but for us it's difficult because we believe that that one is wrong. You have a wrong choices. That one is example from a small organization. How about in a society or in an organization, big organization? This the same pattern we can see based on that. So the one is one of the big issues when involving youth.
Yeah. I think that's, you're spot on, I think, with that. Anyone else? I saw another anyone want to respond to Mahfouz? Agree, disagree? Want to add anything?
I think it depends on the culture too.
On the culture.
Yep.
In what way, Mutiara?
Yeah.
Hey, she got.
Who wants to say something? Go ahead.
Are you talking to me? No, I was waiting for you.
Oh, no, I hear someone wants to say something.
Somebody else want to comment?
Okay. So
go
I
ahead.
think it depends. Yeah, I think it depends on the culture. Yeah, it is true. Older people tend to think that they are more experienced, but not all of them like that. You know what I mean? Some of them are really understanding and sharing experience. So it's about sharing to the young adults. Yep.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Thanks. Thank you for that. Okay, so Shahana said, I agree with Mutiara. Malaysia culture, like Mahfouz said, prefers someone who experiences better to be a leader. But in my opinion, experience not just a factor, someone can be a good leader. So experience is not the only thing, or it's not maybe the only prerequisite. Okay, thanks for sharing that, Shahana. Anyone else? So let me just comment on what the research says about this. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of research outside of Western countries. We've done quite a bit here in Malaysia, but other than Malaysia, we don't see too much outside of Western countries looking at this topic. I think one of the things that we often misunderstand is when we say, when people hear the word partnership, they always tend to think 50-50. Like Mahfouz, like you said, just because a young person gives their opinion, that the idea that young adults just accept their opinion because you're involved in a youth adult partnership or something. And so that's often what they've written about in the literature is often like if an organization is involved trying to implement youth adult partnership, for example, or trying to take a youth adult partnership approach, right, where they really want to invite young people to be involved, to have voice in decision making and all that. There's often this problem because adults, of course, we do have more experience than youth, right? And experience is important. Experience is an important source of knowledge, right? And so there's always this tension between, like what you said, Mahfouz. I mean, to what extent should young people actually be involved in the decision making? Okay. And if adults feel very strongly that the feedback, the opinions that young people are giving are sort of wrong, do you just let them continue with it, or do you say, no, this is wrong? So these are the kind of issues that sort of have to be worked out, and they often are worked out. They often are worked out in ways like before they start, they'll identify the roles for each. So for example, like in an organization, youth decision-making doesn't necessarily have to be on every element or every aspect. So for example, like in a company, I'll take a workplace, for example. In a private company, you may give young people a certain project to run because they have really good experience, networking with their peers. They know how to use social media for networking. So let's let them lead that part of the project. Okay, that's still youth adult partnership, right? It's still because it's still involving them in things that matter to them in areas that they have good experience in. Okay. And so it's often working out what is appropriate, where's the appropriate place for young people to be involved and to take on leadership roles, and what is the appropriate place for adults to take on leadership roles, right? So there's this sort of negotiation process that sort of happens. So like Mahfouz, you gave the example of a family, like I have teenage kids and I'm also involved in this youth development stuff. The role of a parent is a bit different than like a youth worker. There is, of course, there are, and I really do try to involve my kids in decision making in the home, but it's not exactly the same. I think there's a certain, parenting is a certain very unique. There's nothing like parenting. It's so unique, and it's not exactly like being in a youth organization or like in a company or something like that. There's definitely a difference, right? And it's just the unique nature of parenting and family. Family is a very unique kind of organization, institution, right? But no, but I definitely do try to walk the talk in that sense, But I mean, I have no problem telling my kids that I think they're wrong, but I also give them the opportunity to explain themselves, let me hear your side of the story. Let me hear your opinion. Why do you think you're right? And exactly. So I try to groom them in that sense, so again, because I want them to develop the ability to think through their decisions, right? To really think hard about what decisions they're making, why they're making those decisions, what are they basing it on, stuff like that. And that's, I think, one way of helping young people to develop that sort of intellectual ability to, just to think more about their decisions and why they make those decisions and how they arrive at those decisions and so forth. So yeah, so I understand what you're saying. It's not exactly the same because it's family, it's kind of unique, but at the same time, I think, yeah, the issue of trust, experience, those always come into play, right? But remember, partnership does not have to be 50-50 deciding on everything. That's not what youth adult partnership is all about. It's usually about where does it make the most sense for young people to really have a say and take the lead, and that kind of thing. And where does it make sense for adults to do that, right? So of course, if you're an adult and you believe in this, you want to involve youth as much as possible. But there are times and situations where young people just don't have enough experience and they can't. And that has to be acknowledged as well, right? And I think by both sides, young people have to understand that as well. So Mutiara said here, no, sorry, Fatin said first. What did I miss? There's another comment, sorry. Oh, I missed a few here. Okay, so let's start. Roshikina said, to become a leader, someone must have enough experience. Example in the organization, if someone not have enough experience, they cannot make critical decisions. But youth or junior officers should be given opportunity to involve in a management level. Okay, so that's a good example, Roshikina. So yeah, maybe they're not ready for that type of, top leadership situation or position, right? And that's true. That's absolutely true, right? But that doesn't mean that they cannot be involved. So for example, like if I'm the top leader and I'm the adult, say I have young people in my organization. I want to hear from them. I want to know what they think about what we're doing, right? Whereas a lot of adults will just, oh, they don't even count. We don't care about what they think. Do you know what I mean? So if you're taking a youth adult partnership, you're acknowledging that their perspective is important, is critical, right? Because they are members of this organization. So we should hear from them, right? And so that's kind of the idea. Zila said, previously as a young person, I always think CEO must be 50 above, very old to lead a company. Nowadays, not anymore. Okay, yeah, so I think that is sort of changing, I think, in some in some level. I mean, we see, especially I think because, I mean, look at with tech, right? With tech and social media, you have young people leading companies, doing all this amazing stuff. So, but again, I mean, I don't think it's really about age. I think it's about competency and ability, right? So I think everybody should be sort of judged according to their ability and their competency, whether they're 75 or whether they're 35. You do get some 30-year-olds, 35-year-olds that are able to do it. Maybe most cannot. Maybe they're not ready yet. They don't have experience, but some can. So I don't really. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't really think it's about age anymore per se. And then let's see. Fatin said adults may fear losing power and respect. That's a big issue. Losing power, giving up power is very hard for adults, especially giving it to young people freely. It's very hard to do. Very hard to do. Where my opinion, the youth adult partnership is about acknowledging both parties have unique. Yes, I really agree with that view. But that's just, personally, I just agree. It is that having that unique perspective, and that unique perspective is valuable, especially if you're an organization or community, right? Just the idea that everybody has a role, everybody's perspective is going to be different, but those perspectives are important for the whole. So I think that's very, and especially because the world now is a younger world. In most countries, especially most Eastern countries, we have what's called youth bulges, right? Where a large percent of the population now is youth. So if you're making decisions on behalf of such a large segment of society, but you're not listening at all to what that segment of society thinks and does, it's really dangerous because you're going to be making decisions on their behalf without any knowledge about what they think. Right. So when you make decisions, it's definitely going to affect them. And they're such a large part of society now. Right. So you have these very large youth populations. So I think that's just based on demographics alone, it's really important to hear those perspectives on things. Okay. So yeah, I agree with that position. It's good to have adults to be advisors in youth organization, have young people to do the groundwork. Result is great. I experienced it myself as I joined several youth organizations. So yeah, so that's often the idea, is that young people start off as, they gain that experience doing the groundwork, right? And then of course it's, in voluntary associations, it's often a matter of how much people want to do, right? So it's voluntary. So like if a young person has a real knack for leadership and they want to take a larger leadership role, often in voluntary associations, they have that opportunity, right? Whereas maybe like in a company or in a more formal organization, they may not have those opportunities, right? Because it's not their decision. They have the adults either let them or they don't let them, right? So that's the beauty of youth organizations and youth associations. It gives them those opportunities that if they want to take a more leadership role, they can, because it's there for them, right? And it acts as a sort of grooming, like a training ground for them to do that. That's the real important role that youth associations play in society, is that gives young people opportunity to lead organizations, right? Okay, and then Fatin said, just wondering, can mentoring be a kind of youth adult partnership? Yeah, it often is. When it's done well, Fatin, it is, definitely. It's a model of youth adult partnership, actually, because real mentoring relationships are what we call reciprocal relationships. Mentors don't dictate, they facilitate, right? So a good mentor will ask a young person, where do they want to go, right? And then they'll sort of help them to get there. But in the process, they will learn from each other. They will form a close bond. There will be opportunities for give and take and that kind of thing. So yeah, so mentoring is very much a kind of youth adult partnership. Yeah. Again, when it's done well, when it's real mentoring. Otherwise, it just becomes kind of like, I don't even know what you call it, but they've done a lot of research. They've done tons of research on mentoring, and they've found that mentoring relationships don't last very long when they're very adult centric. In other words, when you get, it's supposed to be a mentoring relationship, and the adults they just tell the young person what to do. You should do this, you should do that. They dictate everything. Those mentoring relationships rarely last very long, because that's not really what a mentoring relationship is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a developmental relationship. They're supposed to facilitate the young person making their own decisions, right? So for example, I think I want to do this, or I think I want to go into this kind of thing. The adult doesn't say, no, you don't do that. That's wrong, don't do that. That's going to be bad for you. They'll ask them questions. Well, why do you want to go into that? What do you think is going to happen if you go into that? What do you think some of the challenges are going to be? They get them thinking about it so that they help them to make sort of sound decisions, right? And they propose, oh, if you do this, you may want to consider this, right? if you do this, just watch out for this. It's that sort of nurturing kind of relationship, but helping them, grooming them to make their own decisions. That's what a good mentor does, right? So they use their experience not to like dictate what you're going to do, but what I've learned is this. You may want to watch out for that. That kind of thing. It's a different type of relationship. Yeah, Zila, apprenticeship is another one. Apprenticeship, again, is a more traditional relationship. We don't see them as much anymore, although they are coming back, actually. In fact, I just saw an article today about apprenticeships coming back, and they definitely are a youth adult partnership. In fact, in traditional societies, apprenticeship was how young people learned their sort of career paths. It's sort of how they learned how to do trade, how to become a craftsman. It was through apprenticeship. And it was, I think in the article we read very early on in the class about youth identity, we learned about that in that article, that once a young person hit 14 or 15, they were often taken in by an apprentice, by a master, right, to become an apprentice. And there was this idea that this was a young adult starting off their career, and they're learning how to be a tradesman, learning how to be a craftsman, right? Adult to adult, sort of experienced adult to an unexperienced adult, but treated as an adult. And they were sort of taught the ways of that particular trade. So yeah, so apprenticeship is very much in that same youth adult partnership vein. So again, helping the young person to learn the ways of doing it, learning how to make their own decisions, right? Not being dictated to, but being groomed, being guided, and that sort of thing. So yeah, very much, I would say. But again, we don't see them as much nowadays, but I think you're going to start to see them. They say actually in the technological fields now, they're doing a lot of apprenticeship work. In companies, like tech companies and stuff, they're doing a lot of apprenticeship stuff. So it's just interesting to keep an eye out for that. We may see a revert to an old way of grooming young people, especially in terms of career. I would love to see more apprenticeship. I think apprenticeship is the best way to learn, really. I mean, if you have someone who really knows their trade and they take you under their wing, in a sort of one-to-one relationship, and they really show you the ways and they groom you. And I mean, I think it's just a great way to learn. Fantastic way to learn. So hopefully, inshallah, maybe you guys can all become, you can start off the new apprenticeship movement in Malaysia. Okay, anyone else? Anything else anyone wants to add before we adjourn for the evening? No? Okay. Well, that's all for tonight, I guess. Next week, as I mentioned, we'll have our guest speaker talking about youth and volunteerism. So it should be very interesting. Dr. Siti is very experienced. It should be a very interesting talk. We may probably, I don't want to burden her, so I asked her just to talk for about an hour. So we might finish up by Maghrib next week, just so you know. Okay. All right. So if there's nothing else, then I shall see you all, inshallah, next week.
Thank you, Prof.
Okay.
Thank you, Prof.
All right.
Thank you.
Sama.
Thank you, Prof.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prof.
Yeah. Happy IPO.
Assalamualaikum.
Stay safe. Assalamualaikum.
Salam.
Okay, good night.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Prof.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.